Yes. So let me delete this one. We are going to the create, and here look for the shapes. So there's two overlapping circle and rectangle. That's the icon of the shapes. And choose rectangle. When you have rectangle, when the rectangle is chosen, then you will be able to turn on auto grid. So auto grid by default, it's gray if nothing is turned on. You can't really adjust it. Turn it on, turn it to rectangle on, then you can turn on auto grid. It remembers my previous choice. And then we can walk down, choose creation method. So if you don't see creation method, there's a chance it is closed. So it is a rollout. If you click on creation method, it will reveal the options. And now we have center and edge. The default is edge. So in your case, it might be worth to switch to center. And then because auto grid is on, I just have to pick the right choice of origin of my face. And in the middle of the mouse, ideally, I'm holding the left mouse button and dragging it out. In your case, it will be a simple line. In my case, because rendering, enabling the renderer, enabling viewport is turned on, it was already visible. But in your case, you have to select the item, go to the modify panel, and then open up rendering area, rollout, and enabling renderer, and enable in the viewport will reveal this element. Okay, so that's it practically. The creation method. We can also make a slight change about this look because right now it's a little bit blocky. So maybe a soft round around these corners should be a little bit more pleasing to the eye. For that change, we should look for parameters. So under this column at the very bottom, there is a corner radius option. So I will just be carefully holding the left mouse button and drag it up and down until I'm satisfied. If it's too much, you will get a result like this. So we will crank it down and make sure it looks nice. To check errors, so if the overlap is too much, now it's visible absolutely, but if you have nuances, you can turn on function key 4. Function key 4 helps us to show wireframe on top of the shaded mode. So function key 4 F4 helps us to see the wires on top of each, on top of the shading. And now I'm cranking and dialing down the corner radius value because it was way too much. Okay, and our task now is to create teeth for this. If you want to make it center, we have to switch to move mode because that is about a transformation. So W is for the move mode, or you can choose the icon here. And whenever you switch to any type of transformation tool, this area at the very bottom becomes valid. So can you see the values here? Now, the values tell us that if it is offset, and because the original head was placed dead center, if we place along the x-axis is the horizontal one. So if x is 0, that means the mouth will be in the center. So I can press a right click on the arrows, and that makes sure that the mouth is dead center. So to move on, we will create teeth. We will create a single teeth first, then we will create a tiny gap. We will make a copy of that teeth with a gap in mind, and we will populate that. So we will create teeth in the row, and later on we should make an adjustment to make sure that the teeth are fitting in the mouth correctly. Well, we use a modifier called FFD. This is a freeform modifier, and it really brings us to the editing process. So this is why we are using, it's a kind of a bridge between the hardcore version of editing. It's kind of an introductory way to edit things around. So the first, what we need to create is a basic model for a tooth, and that will be in the create area. It will be geometry, and instead of standard primitives, we are looking for extended primitives. So this is a rollout. Don't forget, whenever you see the tiny triangle, that is usually indicates that we have a rollout button, so we can open up the menu. So I'm clicking on it, And here we go, extended primitives are available. And now we can create the first theme. And that will be a chamfer box. So chamfer box auto grid is enabled. If not, don't forget to turn it on. So auto grid is enabled, and I'm coming in and I'm starting on this top right corner. So top right for the figure, it's not a direct to right. So I'm pulling out the fundamentals. All right, so this is the base of the box. Then releasing the mouse, then pulling up. That is that is the elevation, this extrusion. And we still have one more step. I've clicked, and I still have one more step, and that is about the chamfer. If you cannot create the chamfer, it may happen. I'm moving the mouse up and down. So if I'm moving it up, it starts to create the chamfer for me. But sometimes it's hard to create. But don't worry, you can complete it once you created a basic chamfer box without the chamfer. So right now, chamfer box is active. If you remember, every time you want to leave a creation method in 3dsmax, you're just pressing the right click. So right click here, and then I'm moving to the modify panel because I want to change the values. Right? So the basic element is here, selected. It has to be selected. And I'm going to the modify panel. It says chamfer box, and this is the fillet value. So if you have accidentally created a basic fillet with 0 value, and you see this, you only have to go in and try yourself and crank up the fillet. Okay, so that is it. Now let me update the position. So I'm in the move mode, select and move. W is the hotkey for select and move. And because this is protruding too much, I will try to reduce the height value, and maybe I will pull it in and pull it back. So yeah, I want to create a solid intersection between the mouth and teeth. So that's it. This is our elemental tooth, and I will rename it tooth 001 because we will create more of these. Now, we are lazy, and we want to make it as easy as possible. And one way is to use the clone tool for that. The clone tool works with the shift key. There is a special command just for the cloning, but that clones only in place. Right now, we want to move it, create multiple elements, but we want to transform them into space. So we are combining transformation and copying. So I'm in transformation mode. I have the model selected, so that should be sure. And I'm holding down the shift key and holding it down, and along the x-axis, red is the x. Red is the x. So holding my shift key and slightly move the tooth away, and paying attention that I want to create a gap between the two. And once I'm satisfied with the location, I'm releasing both the shift key and the mouse button, and the clone options will pop up and appear. So anytime, if you have no mouse or you are in travel or something, you can use these the zoom. This is the first one. It's the basic zoom tool. We have a pan, the hand tool, and this is the orbit. There is even a hotkey for the orbit. It's Control R. Okay, we are not using this to. It's quite a rare thing. But if you want to rotate around your element and you don't have a mouse, you can quickly press Control R. Now you can rotate around with the touchpad and press Escape to leave this kind of a rotation mode. It's not that fast, but at least it's working. Okay, now, so creating the teeth, we have to do this shift and drag, and when we are releasing, here comes the clone options, and we will choose copy mode. We don't really looking for right now for the instance method. It could be, but right now we are not interested in that. But we are truly interested in the number of copies section. So number of copies, instead of keeping it at 1, I don't want to create only this single item. We should crank it up to about 10. I'm not sure. Maybe it will be unnecessary, but hitting OK. And now I see overrides. Okay, so this is what we have. What should we do? Yes, we can select and delete just by hitting the delete button. Backspace will not work. Hit the delete. So look for delete. And now I've deleted all of these. So here we are with a couple of teeth. There is a slight problem because the gap here on this right side is not the same what we have here on the left side. But don't worry, we'll use a modifier to solve this problem. But to use that modifier on all of the teeth. Why? Because we want to stretch them all together, so make them one unit. But how to make them one unit without destroying the geometry? So I don't want to use the separation. So I want to have them individually, but temporarily I want to group them. The grouping part. So first, whenever you want to create a group, you have to first select the items. So one way to select, there are multiple ways. I will show a couple examples and you can choose which one you prefer. If you are pretty accurate with the naming, usually it's a good idea to use the shift and the name. So here's the name, click on the first, hold down shift, and now selected everything that is a tooth. Or if you have hundreds of elements, but you know the name, you can go up here in this location dialog, and you can type in tooth and hit enter, and now we have all the elements selected. So we can go in, and now these are selected. And there's another solution. So instead of typing or using this dialog, especially if you're working with a laptop and the screen is so small, you don't want to use this all the time, or you don't like to scroll all the time too much, select a single item, and if you press Ctrl Q, it will select everything that is similar to the item. Okay, so the magical hotkey for selecting similar object is Ctrl Q. So I can select this eyeball and I can give it a try, Ctrl Q, and it selects the second eyeball, all right, because it is a similar object. So same with the tooth, Ctrl Q selects everything. Now, it is a very practical advice. Make sure you have your selection correct. So I like to move it away to make sure that nothing else is moving, nothing else is selected, it's only the T. Press and undo. Or another solution is to Alt-Q to isolate the selection. You can click this button. This is isolation at the bottom here. So you can always choose that to check your selection. But once you have it, the only thing we should do is to go to the menu, up here in the menu, and group. Click on group, and it will bring you the dialog. And let me rename these to T and up. Okay, so don't hesitate to stop me if you have something that needs further explanation. So I'm happy to help. So here we have this group. Now it is acting like a single element. All right, it's not a final decision. So you can open up this group. You have the selection. You can still go up to the menu, go to group. And we have ungroup option. We have open option, so you can open up temporarily, select one, two, modify it, and then close back the group. And you can even explode. Explode is it is really helpful if you have groups within groups, more. So you have a couple hundred elements and you want to tear it apart. This is where explode comes in. Open is only opening up one level. So what the actual group you selected. Now here's the group, and here comes the modifier I was talking about. The modifier is named FFD. This is a shortened version of free-form deformer. Free-form deformers are acting like magnets. So you have an element, you have an object, and you have control points, and it's like you have a crystal ball and you have fingers and you're doing magic with those control points. So we will transform those through editing. So here we are from the modifier list. I'm pressing F and entering and look for FFD, but we will start small. So the smaller the number, the less points you have, the easier to work with this. And right now we need only this basic, because our main goal here is to adjust the size of the teeth, because this the corner of the mouth is a little bit off. So this is what we are looking for. So FFD 2x2 will bring us to this modifier, and if you take a closer look, you might recognize function key 4 is to turn on and off the wire. So F4 is turning on and off the wire. I like to keep it turned on because it gives information about the proportions and the structure of the model, especially in the early stages. But if it's barely visible, but we can see an orange bounding box like thing. Now, if you want to truly see this, you have to switch to wireframe mode back and forth. All right, so we are not just rotating quite often. So when you have the group selected, do you see the name, and have you visited the modifier? All right, can you see the modifier list drop down? Click on there and press F just for FFDs. Press F. It will list in alphabetical order. So it will navigate your list to this look, and then you will be able to choose FFD. So, and as you see, the name of the modifier is written in italic because this modifier is applied through a group, so it affects multiple individual elements within the group, and this is why it is italic. So it's not a single item with a single modifier on top of it. These are multiple items packed in a group and applied a modifier just to the group in a hierarchy. So F3, function key 3, okay? So F3 is a really, really good friend of ours, because when you're turning this on, you can see through the shaded mode, the faces, and you might recognize the points. These points are called control points. We want to adjust these control points, but how to enter edit mode, how to enter to adjust these. Please take a look at your modifier. Right beside the modifier, there is a triangle. Right now, the triangle points to the modifier. So it's like acting to the modifier, so I can't show it. But if you press on the triangle, it will open up. Again, anytime you see a triangle in the menu, that tells you that, okay, you can open up something there. And when you hit control points, it will highlight that control points in blue, and it's a little bit stepped back. And this is the moment where you are entered edit mode. Okay? There is no sign. There is no special color. It is just a different level. All right? So keep that in mind. When you are in edit mode, you can't select anything else. You are adjusting something in the progress. So I can't select the eyes. I can't move anything. I can just control my points. Now here comes the big deal. We have 4 points. 1, 2, and all 4 in the corners. Instead of clicking them individually, because clicking only selects 1 point at a time, and we want to select all 4 because all 4 is needed to change the length. Now, please drag a window around these 4. F3 is to show the shaded mode, and I'm moving these along the x-axis, and that is the moment where the magic happens. Right, so if I want, I can shrink them down like this, or stretch them even more. Right now, my goal is just to find something that is looking promising and looking even on each side. So what you have to look for is you have to be in edit mode. That means you have to have selected a sub-object. You can have control points selected, and now you will be able to select all these points in the end. Now these are highlighted in yellow. So these are not orange anymore. These are simply yellow because these are selected. And then you will be able to move them away. That with a hotkey, you can go where we are. So this is a wireframe override. What you can choose from. Okay. And edge faces. So these two. So edge faces or wireframe override. Okay, now what's next? We have a bottom set of teeth, and we don't want to do it all over again. So we will copy the upper teeth, move them below, and then we will make the adjustments necessary. And the final is we want to create a kind of a grid, a smile-like arrange. So we want to create an arc with the teeth. And for that, we will choose another modifier on top. So here we are. Now, I'm not in edit mode anymore. Okay, be careful. The name of the modifier is highlighted in blue, and that tells me, okay, now I'm on the top level. So if I want, I can select anything else. If I want to move this item, I can move it freely. So I'm not in editing anymore. I'm holding them shift key, shift and drag along the Z axis. So that is the up and down, that is the blue arrow axis. So I'm holding shift key, dragging, and place it here, and then release the cursors, and it will be teeth button. And the number of copies is set to 1 because there's only 1 at the bottom. And here we are. Now, of course, we have a gap here between the bottom teeth and the lower lip. We want to fill that gap by stretching out the teeth. So to make that stretch, what I have to do, this is just repeating and try to help you to practice these things. So again, I have to go to the FFD modifier. I have to enter in the edit mode by selecting the sub-object. So I'm opening up this sub-object menu and hitting on control points. And there we go. Now, I don't know what happened with your selection, but by default, if you copy an element, it remembers your previous selection. So because upper teeth, I was selecting this left side of the teeth to shrink them down. The copied bottom teeth still remembers that selection of the FFD, so I don't have to select if I'm planning to make similar changes. But right now, my change is different. I want to stretch them out to the bottom. Again, to check, I'm going to wireframe mode, wireframe override, function key 3, and zoom in and look for the points I want to select. If I'm just selecting only one side, don't forget, we are using Windows. Why? Because, again, simply point and click can only select a single point. You can't select 2 points in a row. And because we are in 3D, there is a chance when you think you have 1 point, it is actually 2. Okay, because these are overlapping. And when you're just pointing and clicking, you think that you can select the 2 points because they're overlapping, but sorry, point and click only select 1. So what you have to do, you have to drag selection, drag the rectangle to select all 2. So I'm dragging, holding down control and dragging the other side as well because I want to move them as well too. And now I have the lattice, the point selected, highlighted in yellow, and I've moved it away, transform along the z-axis. Okay? If you want to mix up things, you can do something like this. Selecting this corner, holding down Control, selecting the other one, and guess what? We can use not just move, we can use, for example, scale as well. So I will switch to scale. Here at the top, here's the icon, or you can press R, that is for scale, the hotkey. And along the x-axis, I will pull the control points in, and this is what happens. Okay? So I can play with these. If I like the idea, I can even leave editing mode, select the top, enter edit mode for the top, select the bottom points, all four with one huge rectangular selection. I can select all four bottom points, and then switch to move W, or right click and move, and drag it, and switch to scale, and scale along the x-axis. Now I have this. Okay, my robot is a little bit scared, but we're getting closer. Okay, I was talking about something else. I was talking about, okay, we want to create a smile, a gradient, we want to create an arc to the teeth, but there is no arc yet. Why? If you pay attention to this FFD, you should recognize that we have no points inside. We have points only like the bounding box points, so only at the end. It's like simply a rectangle and nothing else. A brick like a bounding box. So we need points inside, but we can't do that with FFD 2x2. We need more resolution. We need FFD 3x3, for example. But we are lazy again. So instead of creating the lower part arced and the top part arced, we can convert it, we can attach them into a single group. So that way we can work them simultaneously all together. So we don't have to separate up and down. Now for that, what I should do, if I want to group an item, I have to select the item first. The bottom one is selected already. So holding down Control, clicking on the top part, E, but I can't do it. Why? If you look at my screen, why I can't click on the other part, why I can't select it? I forgot to exit editing mode. So what I have to do is to walk up, click on the name of FFD, and now back on the hierarchy, back in the game, so I can hold down Control, click on the top teeth, and now I will be able to group them together. Yes, you can create a group, and you can put that group into another group, and this way you can create a kind of a nested structure. You have to be careful with this, but if you have only maximum 4 levels, but usually 3 is quite close to the max, it is quite flexible and manageable, but sometimes it's depending on the object. Here, it's absolutely fine. So go back to the group menu and group again, and now this will be teeth and all, because all of the teeth are in here. And again, the modifier list, under the modifier list and the modifier stack, we see nothing. Why? Because it's not a single object. It is a pack of objects. It is a container. So we can't see the individuals. If we want to see the individuals, we want to delete a teeth or a couple teeth or something like that, we have to open up the group. So in this case, if you want to remove one, group, open, then select the other group inside the group, open. So I'm on the second level. Now I can delete this single tooth. Now I can select another item, group, close, and then group, close again. Okay? So you need to open up if you want to access to something and remove them or modify them separately. Okay. And the modifier, I was promising from the modifier list, FFD 3 by 3 by 3, FFD 3 by 3 by 3. So here we are, and as you see, each side of this box is split in half, and in that half, a new control point is placed. So now, if I'm turning on the wireframe, function key 3, or wireframe override, now I see I have 3 points here in a row, 3 points here in a row, and it is true for every aspect. My goal is to create an arc, a smile or a frown or whatever. If I want to edit it, I have to enter edit mode. When I'm on a control point level, when I'm in a sub-object, that is the edit mode in 3dsmax. So now I'm able to select the control points. Please be careful. What you see here is not a single point. These are actually 3 points. So if you want to select all 3, you have to drag a window, drag a rectangle around them, and include all the points in your selection, and then it will be selected. If you're not sure, you can slightly rotate around and check the colors. Okay, if the color shows that it is yellow, that means that particular point is selected. And now I'm switching to move mode. On the top here, you can select the move cursor, or right click and move, or W. And this is what happens if I start to move this along the Z-axis. Everybody is following the arc because the control points are acting like magnets. All right? And because these are acting like magnets, these are fairly flexible. So please note that we have kind of a strong overlap. All right? So if I want to emphasize this arc, I can even pull this through to the roof. Okay? So it's quite obvious it's stretched and distorted, but this is just a control mesh. This is just a control boundary that helps us to change a few things. But more than that, just let me put in a smile. I can select the sides, rectangular selection, holding on control because I want to select the other side as well, symmetrically. Okay, there's no automatic symmetry here. So I'm holding on control and selecting these as well. And I'm pulling this up a little bit to work on that small area. Okay, you can also scale, rotate, and move in every direction. So this FFD is flexible to make tiny corrections for yourself when you design something. So imagine that you're working on your own project. We are not starting our first project with all the fingernails already. We are first we have to create the proportions, make sure that we are creating something that is easy to understand, easy to recognize. We are working with silhouettes usually, and we don't have to use too complex objects for that. So if you have a very simple sphere, for example, you can use this FFD modifier to turn it into kind of a head-like of oval shape. Even without any special tools, and it's really flexible. What else we can do, for example, let me select the middle control point, and I can move off from the plane. So till this moment, I was moving everything in the plane of creation. So it was just scaling up and down. I was using a taper kind of thing, and it changed the arc. But if I'm moving towards the viewer, this is what happens. I can pull this out. Okay? So the 3D will be much more 3D this way. Probably it's too much. Less is enough. But this is it. Okay, so this is what we do practically. Let me show you something that will be useful when we are, especially when we are dealing with animation, but it's also used in modeling. This is the concept of the pivot points. Okay, so to understand what a pivot point is, what you have to know, what you should know, that pivot point is usually it is the center of an object. But if you have a complex object, you are moving this pivot point as you need. Now, the pivot point is usually the center of your actions too. So it's not just a center, an indicator that shows something. But if for example, if your pivot point is placed to this corner and you start rotating your model, this will be the point of rotation. If the pivot point is placed somewhere higher, this will be the point of rotation. So it is crucial in animation, of course. So you don't want to snap an arm apart. Of course, the rotational point should be placed at the elbow, all right. So what we should do is check what the heck is the pivot point. To understand the pivot point, I will create rivets around this eye rim. Okay, so we will create rivets. These rivets will be spheres. So go to the creation method, creation panel, and from the standard primitives, we were using the extended primitives, but we are not using those anymore. So standard primitives, and this will be sphere. So sphere is selected, and auto grid is turned on. That's good. My goal here is to go in and place a single sphere on the rim like this. Okay, and that's good. The sphere is actually pushed in the surface, so that's a good solution for me. And to save some, no, actually, this is it. So we have a sphere. Now here comes the big deal. So let me show you what I want. I want to place these rivets around this rim. So the final look will be something like this. So I want to place these, but I want to do it automatically and I want to do it evenly. The problem with that, if you do it manually, it will be a little bit of a random, and there's no point in that. So to avoid that, I'm looking for an array solution. So this is called array. Now, array can populate items in a specific and accurate manner. So here, this was a guesswork mostly. So we were eyeballing, checking out the distances and the sizes. But right now, we'll do it a little bit differently by values and not by just drag actions. But the problem is the center of rotation for this tiny ball, this rivet, is itself the rivet. So if you start rotating this, it will not generate a nice round rivet, a circular pattern. It will just create multiple spheres in the same place. So to make able to create the rivets all around, we have to move away the pivot, but we don't see the pivot yet. We see this transformation gizmo, but we want to see the pivot itself. Now, please take a look at the screen before you do it on your own. We will progress forwards to the next panel right beside modifier. Here's hierarchy. But when you click on hierarchy, by default, it opens pivot section. So we are just one click away to see where the pivot is. So adjust pivot. When you click on affect pivot only, it is indicating the pivot. So now you see a ghosted kind of a wire arrow coordinates, and you're able to move it. You're able to transform that point. So I can move it away freely. What is my goal? I want to create a rivet around the rim. So the idea is the following. I want to displace, I want to make sure that the position of this pivot point is matching to the position of the rim, of the eye rim. So to do that, it's not guesswork again. We have to do it accurately. How to do it? Please take a look at the top row here in the menu, and under the menu, there's this toolbar, and in the toolbar, right beside the mirror, we have align. But align is complex. We have different ways to align things. Right now, we want to make it as simple as possible, so we will use the quick align. The quick align is not the default tool. Can you see the tiny triangle in the bottom corner of this button? That tells us we have more. So if you hold the left mouse button, it will open up the different options. And there's this thunder light align. And when you have that, and it's active, and FF pivot mode is active, you can click on the rim. And when you click on the rim, the pivot point will snap to the pivot point of the rim. So right now we exactly copied the position of the sphere and the rim. And when we are done with that, we can remove this FF pivot only. So this is a rare situation where you can actually go in and click on the button. Instead of right-clicking, this is how it works. So if you want to turn off edit mode for this FF pivot only option, you have to go in manually and turn it on. Now this is what happened. Now the pivot point, the center of the sphere, is not placed in the center anymore. So when we are switching to rotation, for example, this is what happens. Because the pivot points are matching to the rim, as we rotate the sphere, it will rotate around the rim, just like planets around the center of the system of the galaxy. So what we should do is now we just have to copy them, multiply them. We know the shift key, that might be an option. So shift and drag. This is working. But again, it's kind of a guesswork. So what we will do instead is we will go to array. So tools, array, and this is giving us a huge panel. It is a little bit fearsome at first, I guess, but it's not that complicated in the end. So you should ask the question for yourself, that what I want to do. I want to rotate this thing around. I want to rotate. So choose this arrow to create a rotation. So from the 0 position, make the rotation. Which one is the axis I'm looking for? It is guessing. So I'm turning on preview, and Z-axis is not the axis I'm looking for. Can you see how it changed? It's not what we are looking for. Right click on the arrows can help me to reduce that to 0. Y-axis, yeah, that's it. We will have to make a change. I will explain later on what's going on here. But right now, we are just focusing on to create 360 degrees, so this is a whole circle, and make sure that the count is set to a little bit higher so we have more. The items are here. The items are here. This is just slightly canted. It's because the alignment of the pivot points. I don't want to go very in details. We will do that. We can group these all together, and we can adjust that group as one unit without a problem. So the count is adjusted, rotation is set, the totals is 360, so it's a full circle rotation, and preview is on. If we are satisfied, we can turn OK and accept. Now, Control Q, or we can select by the name, select all the spheres, and we can actually rotate them all together and move them all together if we wish. And I will choose and scale slightly and make it fit. Okay, so that is the concept of pivot points. What you have to keep in mind that every object, when you create an object, it will have a center, but we can adjust that center. It will become important, especially when we are working with symmetry. We will talk about this more in the future. But right now, it is mostly about understanding the logic of the pivot points. Okay, we still have time, and I want to show you why we are using FFD and how you will be able to model your own figure, character, animal, creature, whatever you choose. Okay, now let me show you a quick example, and this is mostly so you don't have to follow with me. It will be a little bit faster. I want you to see the process. Okay, so to understand what subdivision modeling is and how we will build up, for example, a quick body for a figure. So imagine that we have this robot head, and we want to create a body for this, at least an upper body with some kind of an arms. But this will be an organic body, so it's not a blocky one. It will be kind of like a boy upper body in there. So I will start from a box, and this technique is often called box modeling because usually we are starting from very basic geometry. Now the box will be created from the left side. The reason is because I only need a half of a box. Autogrid is on, but I will turn it off. So I'll create a box in the center, and I was creating on the left side because right now I'm just curious about working on the right side of this body. So here we go. This is it. Now, at this moment, I can't do anything else in the box, so I have to convert it into an editable poly, and then go in the edit mode. So I'm selecting the polygon in the center, and because it will be mirrored, I don't need that. So I need only a cap on one side, another cap on the other side, and because these two caps will be welded, at the end I will have a solid object. Now let me do that right now. So I'm leaving edit poly now mode and looking for a modifier called symmetry. Now symmetry has an orientation of mirroring. It is wrong because back and forth, I went to left and right mirror. Z is the left and right mirror for now. And then I can apply turbo smooth as a subdivision modifier. So my main goal here is work on this side. So I have these less amount of points. The less points I have, the easier I can manipulate things, and I can build up fairly fast the things I'm looking for. But right now, it is like a weird odd ball created from a cube. So what's the point? Now here we go. So this is a polygon. We can turn on this show and result, and I can work on the control mesh. For example, I can cut this up by switching to edge mode, select all the edges, connect them, and then go to this polygon mode and inset that, created a smaller polygon, then scale the polygon down, switching to extrusion, and now I'm ready to create an arm. Okay, maybe it's too much, too early. I want to cant it in the 3D space, so Shift E, extrude again. So now this is the body. It's only the upper arm, but it's promising. What else should I do? Maybe this polygon is too short as an upper body, so I have to move it. What happens if I want to open up the body, because it looks odd that is softened up? So I can just delete this polygon, and now I have a kind of a t-shirt like look of the model. It's depending on the choice. I need a neck. So how to create a neck? I will enter isolation mode, Alt Q, and select the top of the neck, create, let me turn off show and result, create another inset, but it is actually generating two necks for me. So what should I do? I'm deleting this polygon, select this one, pulling it back to center, and now I have a single one. I can go back again, go to extrusion. Maybe this neck is too wide. So what I could do, select these vertices, selecting all of these, now shrink it down and go back and look for a solution and leaving isolation mode. Okay, so this is the box modeling method we will use and learn at the beginning. As you see, you can combine many things. So you don't have to build up the whole idea of yours from a single box in a single object. To split up things, it's a good way to save some energy and time, especially if you have a higher resolution item and a lower resolution connected. So for example, if you have a head and you model the many tiny details, you have ears, other things growing out, so it's extruded from the surface, and you don't want to weld that to the body to make it fix, because sometimes this welding could be a little bit of a hassle to work the geometry, to work with the geometry. So you can keep them separated. Or if you have a very simple object, you may try to manage to, instead of this split up idea, you want to keep them as one unit. All right. So this will be the core and the basic of our next steps. We will go through these editing methods. So I will explain what the vertex are, how to work with those, how to select what to watch. But I wanted you to understand what is edit mode is all about. So this logic of entering sub-object mode, switching to edit, and then perform something. And the selection of points is crucial, okay? Because when we start manipulating these points, and this is Mariam asked about, okay, which one is my point? Now, imagine when you have such a complex shape as this, it's not that complex, but when you have more and more points, you need to know where you are in the 3D space, okay? So you will be familiar with these. Good news, most of the hotkeys are already presented. So navigation hotkeys, different viewports, T, top, P, perspective, W for move. So these common hotkeys are shown. And if you just type in, so if you want to learn these, memorize these, or print it for yourself, or make a note, you can just type in Google 3dsmax hotkeys, and actually there's a wiki, and it shows so many things. So select object is Q, space is the lock selection, Control A, select all. All right, so undo read, all the typical things are there to choose from if you want to speed up your work, and that's it.